A2Z across L&C with your hosts, Jeff Alsman and Cody Zipman.
And hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the A2Z Across L&C podcast. My name is Jeff Alsman, one of the two hosts of the program. Cody Zipman, my co-host, is not with us today. Cody is on assignment. He will be back, however, for the next episode. We've still got a great program planned for you here today. Hope you can stick around to get through it in its entirety. We do want to let you know if you're interested in finding out about the events that are happening on campus. You can go to events.lc.edu. That will take you to our public calendar. You can search it there by room, by date, by event name, and find just about every event that is on campus that's happening. You can search for it and find out the information about it there. Also want to let you know if you'd like to get a hold of us, either to be on the show or if you have a comment or criticism or a suggestion, you can email us at a2zpodcast@lc.edu, and we read all of those and are happy to entertain the idea of maybe having you as a guest or at least listening to the feedback that you provide for us about the program. Having said all that, we need to get right to it. So when we come back, we'll be talking about the Lewis and Clark Criminal Justice Department here on the A2Z Across L&C podcast. We are
L&C A2Z.
Yo, what up? It's Mike Keith, the proud graduate of Lewis and Clark. I got my start in the radio program that put me on the path to where I am today. We still do radio, but now we're so much more. Podcasting, producing, and editing, not to mention new equipment, studios, courses, and a new name. If you want to work in professional media or create better content for the things you love, do like I did and discover your path at Lewis and Clark Community College. Enroll today at lc.edu.
And welcome back to the A2Z Across L&C podcast. Jeff Alsman here. Cody Zipman is on assignment today. We're joined now by Jessica Noble, who is a professor of criminal justice here at Lewis and Clark Community College. Jessica, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jeff.
So tell us a little bit about the program in general. Just give us a kind of a general overview.
Yeah, so the program is an Associates of Applied Science degree. It's 60 credits, so it takes you about 2 years if you stay on the normal track for 15 credit hours a semester. It's transferable to multiple colleges in the area, or you can take your degree and enter the workforce. We teach classes in all areas of criminal justice, and we also have our gen ed curriculum that is included as well.
Do you find that most of the graduates do go right into the workforce? They're excited, they're ready to go. That's the career that they're very passionate about, and so they just want to hop right in?
Yeah, the majority of students who want to do local law enforcement or corrections go right in. If they want to work with kids or they want to do probation and parole. Anything in community corrections, a lot of times you have to have a 4-year degree now. They've put some stipulations on that through the state. So students will go on and get that 4-year degree for that. Those types of jobs.
So what kinds of things are taught in the classes? Is most of it more along the legal requirements and the legal systems and things like that the officers need to know about? Or is there also some hands-on training in defense or self-defense, or is it a mixture, or what's involved?
Yeah, so we have our basic general courses that we teach, and then we have electives. So we do the legal, we do corrections, we do law enforcement. We have a forensics class that has a lab component where we do fingerprinting, tire track impressions. We do what is it called? I'm sorry. Ballistic,
I don't know.
Ballistics. We also do tool mark impressions. We do a lot of fingerprinting. And also, we try to take students on tours of different places so they can see where they will be working, just to give them a heads up if this is, what we're doing. Right now, I'm organizing a trip down to the Southwestern Illinois Correctional Center, which is in East St. Louis. So we're trying to get a tour there so I can show students what a minimum security prison looks like. And those are all optional, obviously. You don't have to attend if you don't want to, but it's a very awesome learning experience. I did it when I was in college, and I found it really valuable. And last year we went to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab in Belleville. they asked us to come, and we got to do the Milo simulator. So we get to do some really cool stuff outside of class too.
Now, you've been at the college how long?
13 years.
Okay. So I'm going to guess that back when you first came on the scene, that the career field was probably more male dominated, but I suspect that has changed a lot in the last decade or so.
So law enforcement has predominantly been male. It's changing somewhat in the classroom. You can tell the switch has already happened. There's more females than males sometimes. I think I recently read 20-something% of law enforcement are females right now. And that varies a little bit by where you live. But I will tell you probation and parole and community corrections is mostly female, interestingly enough.
So what type of characteristics do most of the students that are interested in this program have? Do they either have somebody in their family that's already been in the field, and so this is a following generation that's going to pick up where mom, dad, uncle, somebody like that is passing the legacy down? Are these folks that watch crime shows on TV and just get fascinated by it? Do you find any kind of common thread that goes through the students' characteristics?
One thing that students have been telling me more lately is that they want a job that's different every day. They don't want to sit behind a desk. They want to do something active where they're helping people or helping their community. A lot of them see law enforcement as a public service, obviously, and so they want to give back. And then my students who work in corrections, they really see it as helping people that are incarcerated. So they really, a lot of them really, really enjoy, helping those people to make better choices. And then we do get the few that have watched the crime shows, or maybe their mom or dad are, employed or something like that, or maybe they have had a situation with the system and they want to make a difference. I've seen that too. But I'd say the majority are looking for something that's different every day.
So when the student enrolls, do you find a lot of them come in without any real knowledge of what they might be getting into, and so they are learning right from the very basic level, or do you find that some of them at least have an idea, having experienced either maybe a visit to their classroom by they used to call them DARE officers, they're called student resource officers, I think now, or something. But is there sometimes a common thread where there's a moment in time where some type of interaction caught a hold of them and they realized this was their passion?
Yeah, I don't really know. I would say probably what's happened is they decided that, they... I kind of think back to when I was studying criminal justice, and I thought it looked exciting. It looked engaging and there was a lot going on, and I just felt like, oh wow, I could do that. And so I don't know if that's kind of what they get, or if they've had experiences like you said with their school resource officer where they come in. I know a lot of students are have had interactions, like positive interactions with the police, and I think that's something that they consider. And we have quite a few military students too as well. So
what are some of the questions that you get that you might rank up there and say, well, yeah, I've answered that one 4 or 5 times now, so I've kind of got a pat answer down to that. Do you get a lot of questions from students that come in and just kind of want to investigate, no pun intended,
right?
The program and say, this might be something I'm interested, but what can you tell me about it? Yeah,
so I think I get a lot of students who ask, like, what can I do with my degree? I think that's always a big question for anybody that's going to college. And so I try to show them, like, where our alumni are and what they're doing. And then I always get the questions about, well, like, can I just be a detective? And I'm like, not exactly, and, well, I want to be a crime scene investigator. Okay, here's the path, Do you want to do the lab side? Because that's very different. If you want to be a DNA analyst, we need to talk about science. So good thing I've kind of picked up on a lot of that stuff, and I've learned some really great things from people in the field that have helped with that. And so I think I get a lot of that, and I also get I liked watching it on TV, so maybe I'll think about it, and I'm like, well, let's take the class and see if you think something fits there. And I think a lot of students, honestly, I think they they really enjoy the material and they like to learn about it. So I think they find it pretty interesting. So I really do think that they get a pretty good broad understanding of criminal justice in our program.
I would think that it also takes a special type of person who's able to remain calm under what could be the most intense pressure you might ever face. I don't know. I'm guessing you can't teach that. Folks either have that or they don't have that.
Actually, I was just having a conversation with my students a couple days ago, I guess last Thursday, about how do we cope with different things that happen in our jobs, right? So there's a level of stress that you can handle, and then there's a level of stress you cannot. So what do you do to combat that? As I've told you before, I worked in lockdown detention with kids, and I've worked in situations where, kids had guns and things like that, high risk situations. Worked in social work in St. Louis, So I know what I do to cope with stress, but we also know that there's a lot of things that people do that are not healthy. So we talk a lot about that, and we talk about what can we do to do better. And I think you do have to kind of have a sort of certain type of personality to do the job. And sometimes that takes experience, and sometimes people just have it. I enjoy young adult population. That's a group that I've always had really great interactions with, and I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I really enjoy that population of people, and I think you have a really great opportunity. Every time I have a student who wants to study or go into juvenile probation, I'm so excited because that's what I did. And I know there's a certain type of person, obviously, that can be a police officer. There's a certain type of person that can work in a prison, because the prisons are very different than your community. And then people who can work with kids. I mean, there's totally different personalities for sure. So I agree with you on that. It takes a lot.
We hear a lot about these days about the need for community policing or the community interaction. How big of a deal is that? When you're the more involved you are with the local officers, the more involved they are with the community. I mean, it certainly all sounds very positive, but do you really see, do studies show that there is a real correlation, a real impact there?
I think so, but I think part of the problem is money. A lot of events that police officers work at, they're usually on shift, if they're working parades or things like that. But to get in the actual community and talk to people, outside of taking calls for service, that takes money, and sometimes we don't have it. So what we can do is have community partners with different organizations. I think that's really important. Just like, for instance, we have Chestnut Health or any kind of behavioral treatments or anything like that, because mental health is a really big deal. Addiction, stuff like that. So the more community partners we have, I think, in my opinion, the better. And you can work with those people and improve your relationship with the public.
So as we begin to wrap up here, let's kind of get back to your program specifically then. The field is growing. You have a lot of interest. The program growing as well? Yeah,
we are. I think for a little while, there was a downward slide. We had some, community, or I shouldn't say community, but some issues going on. Law enforcement kind of had a bad light for a little while. Societal issues. But I think what we can do is we can continue to educate people, continue to work with the public. And our program is growing, but we have more employers knocking on the doors than we have students. So we're always looking for more.
And you mentioned some of the area departments. Do you want to rattle off any of those where we have Lewis and Clark alums? Yeah,
sure. Alton, Jerseyville, Jersey County, Madison County, Edwardsville, Greene County, and let me think, Macoupin. And then we have students who work in Madison County court, detention. We have a couple students in law offices around Madison County as paralegals and those kind of things. And then we also we have quite a few students who work in the Department of Corrections for the state of Illinois. And they're kind of spread out, mostly Graham. Trying to think. I think I had one down in Marion at one point, somewhere down there.
So there's a good chance you can come through your program, and if you live in this district, be scooped up by one of the 100%. Departments very close by and not have to leave and go halfway across the country if you choose not to.
Yeah.
to begin your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think Madison County is our top employer as far as when I did the survey the last time. Yeah.
So if folks are interested in getting in touch with you or finding out more about the program, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so just reach out to me. My email is jb as in boy, Nelson, Nelson, at lc.edu, or you can call me at 618-468-4524, and that goes to my cell phone. And yeah, or they can come in anytime in Haskell and, find me on a Monday through Thursday. I'm there.
Well, thanks again for being with us and getting
me.
the information out, letting people know that that opportunity is there and that they can get what they need here and just hop right into their chosen career. That's great. That doesn't always happen, from the community college. So it's awesome that program's available and you can do that. So thanks so much for being here.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this. We are
L&C A2Z.
Yo, what up? It's Mike Keith, the proud graduate of Lewis and Clark Community College. I got my start in broadcasting and now I work all over the country. I discovered my path in media, but dental hygiene could have been my thing. Or my path could have been conservation.
And welcome back to the A to Z Across LC podcast. Jeff Alsman here. Cody Zipman, my co-host, is on assignment elsewhere. He'll be back for our next episode. And it happens to be National Adopt a Dog Month. And it also, our show is kind of centering around law enforcement. So we thought we would combine the two and invite members of the Alton Police Department K-9 Department in. We have with us Sergeant Mike Morelli and also K-9 Officer Alan Averbeck. Gentlemen, welcome to the A to Z podcast.
Thank you for having us. Yep.
So, and we'll let the sergeant have rank, let him go first. I'm sure Officer Averbeck's fine with that. Tell us a little bit about the K-9 department at the Alton Police Department and what all it entails. I'm sure a lot of people aren't terribly familiar with it. I mean, it's I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just like you don't always see them out and about. Sometimes they can take a back seat, so to speak.
That is true. You don't always see the K-9s. What we do try to get them out a lot more. But the Alton Police Department has had dogs for a long time. We've never really had a K-9 division, though. We've always had an officer here, an officer there with a dog. And lately, and probably since about 2013, 2014, we've actually tried to build a K-9 division. We've had up to 3 dogs, and we're trying to get it to 4, but the K-9 is very expensive to maintain, to get and maintain, and for the life of the dog. And but we're trying to build a K-9 program. It does take a hidden seat, maybe, not a back seat, but people don't see the dogs that often. They're not what I like to call as pets, so they don't get to come out and play with everyone. These are working dogs. They do have a job, but we do try to get them out. I know a lot of the schools, Alton School District, the St. Mary's, even Alton High, they get to see the dogs quite a bit. So we do get them out as much as possible.
And thank you for correcting me, because back seat's not the best way to describe it. Hidden seat is much better. You sum that up very well. You mentioned the expense. What does, because you can't just go out and pick out any dog and say, we're going to turn this into a K-9 officer. There are obviously certain breeds that are better than others, more trainable, etc. But when we're talking an expense, what are we looking at?
So that's a big misconception with K-9. People think that, and typically we use German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, but people think because you have that breed, that any dog has the capabilities of being a working police dog. We get our dogs from vendors that import them from Europe, where they are bred for this job. It's just like any hunting dog. You're a competition dog. You want the bloodline. So we go through vendors who bring them in through Europe. We typically use German Shepherds or Belgian Malinois. We're Malinois fans because they're just a very high drive dog, but it's very expensive. So people usually gasp when I say an untrained police dog is the minimum of $9,000, and that's just to get the dog. That doesn't include the car, which obviously cars are expensive nowadays. Everybody knows that. So you have to have a car. It has to be a police car. It has to put all the police equipment, and then it has to be a dog police car. There's state legislator that mandates K-9 vehicles to have heat sensors, alarms to go off to keep the dog safe. So you're looking at about $75,000 for a car.
Wow.
Plus you have to have the officer to handle the dog. So that's salary. Train the officer. The dog and the officer go to school together. And then to maintain the dog. These dogs get top of the line food. They get whatever medical care they need. And they get whatever they need, basically. So the life of the dog, so you're at least minimum invested 6-7 years. And that's just a working part of the working life of the dog. We're very fortunate to be partnered with Hawthorne Animal Hospital. They have the Angel Fund, which takes care of, was 15, but now it's 14 K-9 teams. They provide all the food, all the medical, and all the dental for the life of the dog. So the second it gets accepted, they take that burden off of us.
Wow, that's fantastic. I did not know that. You mentioned that most of these dogs are bred in other countries, and I guess that explains why most of the commands are also or oftentimes a foreign language command. Is that also true? So
yes, we used to do that. It used to be like very prominent to use German or Dutch or Spanish or French, but in 2024, it's very easy to Google the German command for lay down, or so a lot of guys just do English. So
I see. Okay, and so let's switch our attention over to Officer Averbeck, who is part of the K-9 unit. Tell us how valuable this resource is. Obviously, it's very expensive, but it seems like there are probably some times when the work couldn't be done in any other fashion.
No, absolutely. Obviously, it takes a special person to be a K-9 handler between a lot of guys, you go to work, you have the separation of work and home, your family life. When you become a K-9 handler, the dog goes home with you every day. So you take these added responsibilities with you and not only to your family. And then when it comes to the work life, when it comes to especially narcotics, they're locating tools, their noses, their sense of smell, their trainability. It's just quality of traits that humans don't have and humans can't do. So without a dog, it allows us to find people that run from us in the woods, run into houses, things like that. And a lot of people think of K-9s as an escalation tool. Most of my encounters when I was using Odin was actually a de-escalation tool. A guy would see the dog and we could resolve the situation peacefully. And it's a way for us to get everybody home alive at the end of the day. So it's an added tool, not only locating, but it can even de-escalate, even though the dog sounds mean and angry. A lot of times it can take that situation from where the guy wants to fight somebody to where he sees the dog, and we can all just come to a peaceful resolution. We can all go home at the end of the day.
I was just going to ask, do you find that, when we'll call them the bad guys, do you find the bad guys sometimes are more afraid of the dog than they are of the officer?
Absolutely. They hear the dog, see the dog, whatever it is. A lot of them will change their mind if you even mention it a lot of times.
We don't want to go there.
They know what the dog's capabilities are. The dogs are very tough. They have a very high drive. And they know what they can do, and they can locate people a lot better than I can. They can smell a lot better. So they know, they hear that dog coming closer, barking. They know the gig's up, they've been caught, and it can end a lot of situations peacefully.
So are most of the dogs that are used, are they younger dogs? Obviously, they have to be old enough to be able to be fit enough to do what they have to do, and then obviously the amount of training time that goes in. But is there kind of a length of time where the dog probably really isn't ready for service until a year old, a year and a half old?
It's about a year. a year to start to see the dog's maturity level. Is the dog capable of displaying the courage that we need him to? Is the dog mature? I mean, I know that's weird to say, but we don't go looking for dogs that are like these rabid beasts that will just bite anything. Like, these things have to have the maturity levels and the bloodline and the temperament to be very strong and social. So they need to go from fighting the bad guy in the dark woods to letting kids, see him jump over a wall or something. You know what I mean? They have to almost be bipolar.
I was just going to say, because I've seen these dogs in classrooms. I've seen these dogs in churches at a community day where the officer may bring in something and hide it and ask the dog to find it, and the dog just walks around like nothing's going on and just goes right and finds it. And there's kids sitting around on the floor everywhere, and it's like it's oblivious to everything except what it's being asked to do, but very calm, demeanored, and like you say, there are times when it has to spring into action, but there are other times when it almost seems like a pet, even though you probably have to caution folks to make sure that it's not a pet, it's an officer,
And it all comes down to the training. Officer Averbeck will tell you, I'm very obedience. The dog has to know obedience. It's instant, obedience to commands. So if I can say sit, or I can tell him to bite, or I can tell him to find drugs, or I can tell him, hey, be free, go to the bathroom, whatever I need him to do, he just does what I tell him to do when I tell him to do it. I wish my kids were like that.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
But they're not. But that's true. We'll go from an apprehension deployment to a demo at East Elementary School, or they go straight from work to home, where Mrs. Sergeant Morelli or Mrs. Officer Averbeck is there ready to see the dog. They're not pets, but they do become part of the family, and I'd be lying if I told you that my wife doesn't go out and give my dog treats when I'm not looking. She'll send me photographs if I'm not out doing something where she's playing with the dog. So the dog has to be able to flip gears. And when they're young, at 12 months old, I don't expect that from them. But after training and then about a year on the job, yes, I expect that dog to be able to do a demo for kids and then go into an apprehension to assist the U.S. Marshals. So
we've talked a little bit about the dogs, and I will not put Officer Averbeck on the spot with this question, but talk about the handlers. If we know what we're looking for in a dog, do you look for particular things in a handler as well?
Yes, absolutely. The handler has to be self-motivated. So with K-9, you get twice as much work. So in Alton, we deal with approximately 30,000 calls for service a year with a population of about 27,000 people. So our officers one officer can handle 15 reports a day. That's, 15 things that he has to document minimum. And if he's a K-9 handler, if he uses the dog on 2 of those, he has to document that. The Department of Justice requires us to keep notes of every deployment. We have to be able to show traits in the dog when they're finding and locating narcotics that can be called to in court. We have to keep a bite ratio, like we can't just be out biting people for, like they do, like they did a long time ago. Like, we're required to keep documentation on a lot of things, as with any other job now, and so they have twice as much work. So they got to be self-motivated. They have to be responsible, because not only am I giving them the dog, I'm not buying them a $10,000 dog because they're, the employee of the month. Like, they're employee of the month every month. I'm giving them a locating tool, a use of force tool. They have to be super responsible. They have to know the law. They have to know the Constitution, how to uphold it. And you can't just be out there, using the dog where you can't use it. Because the dog will find it, and if we don't have a lawful reason to be there, they need to know, are we Are we here lawfully? Can we use the dog? How much force is necessary to effect this arrest? They have to be super responsible. Like it can't just be anybody, and they have to be able to understand that they're going to be on call all the time. You know, the dog might be needed at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're off. The dog might be needed at noon. The dog might be needed, anytime. So they just got to be self-motivated, very responsible, and dedicated.
Have you had folks that say, as much as I'd maybe like to do it, I just don't think I'm cut out for that, and they pass on the opportunity?
Yes, we have a lot of guys who you think that you want to be a K-9 handler until you start being around the K-9 handlers and seeing all the work that they have to do. It's we're almost sadistic, and because we love to do what we do. Like a K-9 handler, like we just love to work our dogs, and we don't care if it's extra paperwork. We just want to work the dog. We're not necessarily dog lovers. I would say more like we're dog enthusiasts. We just love to work our dogs. So we're just, I don't know, OCD with our work. We just love it. Officer Averbeck's very young in his K-9 career, and I'm very old in mine. Like, so mine's getting ready to retire, and he's just getting started. So both ends of the spectrum will tell you, like, it's just amazing to tell an animal to find something in a field in the dark of night, and they can do it in like a minute. And you're just like, I don't even know how he did that.
Yeah.
I know I trained him how to do it, but like, it's just amazing to watch. It's for them to follow the exact footsteps of a suspect that ran away an hour ago. It's just amazing.
And so coming back to Officer Averbeck, did he sum it up pretty well? Let's talk about you individually. How did you get that passion?
No, absolutely. So obviously, one of my passions is going out and trying to make a difference in my community. One of my favorite ways to make a difference in my community is to try and take dangerous drugs and weapons off the streets. That's kind of my passion. Everybody's got their own unique way of doing it. That's one of my unique passions, and that's what got me into K-9. Because narcotic locating tool, K-9, and just my overall passion of wanting to be there no matter what it was. I hated being left out. If something happened while I was off, I'd read the email and be upset about it. So that's how I started my passion with it. And then once I actually got into K-9 and started training and working with the dog and got my first dog, the dog's always challenging you because it's not a linear path. The dog will change its own behavior as time goes on. The documenting, picking up on it, you're always learning something from your dog, somebody else's dog, a different handler, what your dog will do on the street. There's always something to work on and something different. It's always challenging you. And it's kind of a cool way to train with the dog and then challenge the dog to see what he can do. Push the dog, because they're dogs, but they almost are like young employees or young officers, to see what you can challenge them with. What can you learn? What can you do? How can I push you to be better, to make me better? And they'll absolutely do that. You give them a challenge and they'll try and figure out a way to do it. And you just build up on that all the time. And watching my first dog from being untrained to sniffing a car and telling me, oh, there's some sort of narcotic in there. And all of a sudden you search it and there's 3 grams of a narcotic in the glove box in the middle of the car or something like that. It's just amazing. And that passion for me just kind of compounded, because you don't really know what you're getting into until you're doing it. And the passion just kind of kept rising and rising once I started getting into it.
I understand, and I don't know if you were able to hear the first segment, but we talked about our criminal justice program here at Lewis and Clark, and I understand that you are an alum. You went through our program. Talk a little bit about that.
I did. So I went through here when I graduated. I'm born and raised in Alton, so I went to Alton High, graduated Alton High. Kind of started, once I graduated, started getting on the role of, I want to be a cop for my career. Wasn't really sure the direction I wanted to go yet, so I started at Lewis and Clark, kind of a stepping stool. Started building some passion for the criminal justice system. I wasn't quite sold on if I wanted to be a cop yet or not. I was still kind of on the fence. Graduated from here, had an amazing time, made some amazing friends. A lot of people in the community know who Lindsay Timmons is. She was in school while I was here. Jessica Noble, I became great friends with her, still talk to her all the time. And just started getting the passion for some of the people in the community and in the criminal justice system. and it just grew my passion. Luckily, I got hired on with Alton, my hometown, and the passion is just compounded from there through my young career.
So it's like once you're part of the L&C family, you're always part of the L&C family, I guess.
Absolutely. Never leave. You can never leave.
That's great to hear. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have one more segment. So we're gonna let you take us out.
We are
L&C A2Z.
Yo, what up? It's Mike Keith, the proud graduate of Lewis and Clark Community College. I got my start in broadcasting and now I work all over the country. I discovered my path in media, but I could have been an electrician. Or I could have been a nurse.
Maybe not.
And welcome back to the A2Z Across L&C podcast. Jeff Alsman here. Cody Zipman, my co-host, is on assignment today. He'll be back next episode. And we have a special presentation that we would like to do at the moment. Of course, you heard that Officer Averbeck is an alum of our program here, Criminal Justice Program at Lewis and Clark. And he's already mentioned that, once you're part of the L&C family, you're always part of the L&C family. And if you haven't heard this story, a few months back in August, he lost his partner, K-9 Officer Odin, who was killed in action in the line of duty. And on behalf of the college, all of us here, President Ken Traska, the whole L&C family, we wanted to provide Officer Averbeck with a memorial keepsake that he would be able to have and always have a constant reminder of his fallen partner. So, Officer Averbeck, please accept this on behalf of the entire Lewis and Clark family. Thank you and the Sergeant for what you folks do, and rest in peace to Officer K-9 Odin, who certainly is going to be missed and is also part of the Lewis and Clark family by being part of your family. Thank you very much for what you do, for your service. And if, Sergeant, if you'd like to say anything, or if Jessica would like to say anything, you've got the microphone there. Totally up to you.
I just want to say thank you, and we're just happy to be able to present this.
I will tell you just a real quick story about that. I have a high school friend. His name's Ben Harrison, and he has a little hobby/business, Art by Ben. And I called him to commission him to do the portrait, and he said, I won't take your money. And he did it. He had it framed. He said it was something that he wanted to do out of his thanks for your service as well. I just want to mention, and we'll put up an image, but you can go to his Facebook page, Art by Ben. He specializes in buildings, landscapes, pets, portraits of all kinds. Fantastic job. We want to thank him so much as well. But it's just another opportunity, and I'm sure that you have received lots of thanks and well wishes and mementos and whatnot since that day on the morning of August 22nd. And we hope that this is one that will be special to you, and we want to thank Arts by Ben and Ben Harrison for doing that for us as well. I guess with that, we are
L&C A2Z.